Hi, my name is Nicola Dekoya, and today I'll be talking to you about the case for a nationwide $15 an hour minimum wage in the United States. First of all, it is important to remember how the federal minimum wage came about and what purpose it serves. Minimum wage was introduced to the United States through the Federal Labor Standards Act in 1938. The minimum wage was set at 25 cents to protect the most disadvantaged citizens, women and children at the time. Since then, the minimum wage rate has been raised 22 separate times, most recently in 2007, increasing the minimum wage from $5.15 to $7.25, which it currently is. This was done in three steps. Let's take a look at this graph from the US Department of Labor showing the difference between the real and nominal minimum wage from 1938 to 2012. Characteristics of minimum wage workers. From this information, it is clear to see that minimum wage workers do not earn much money, and for them, essential goods and services like higher education appear to be a luxury. So, how much is the federal minimum wage really worth? Simple answer, not much. This means that in order to have earnings above the poverty threshold, a single parent with one child, for example, will have to earn at least $7.86 per hour working full time. At the current rate of the federal minimum wage, the single parent will have to work at least 2,254 hours during the year and on an average of about 43.3 hours each week. How is such a parent supposed to find time to take care of their child? According to the UC Davis Center for Poverty Research, at the current federal minimum wage rate, an individual who works 40 hours a week will earn approximately $267.80 weekly, $1,150 monthly, and $15,080 annually before taxes. Factoring in basic amenities such as food and water, rent or mortgage, health insurance, education, transportation, clothing, leisure, etc., it is clear that an individual cannot survive on income earned from minimum wage alone. We need to talk about the benefits of increasing the federal minimum wage. First off is an improvement in the standard of living. The standard of living and the quality of life for people living on federal minimum wage alone is beyond poor. Increasing the federal minimum wage will improve the standard of living for these individuals below or barely above the poverty line and the quality of their life. The cost of living in the United States today is too high for someone who earns less than $15 an hour. Secondly, an increase in the aggregate demand. Colander defines aggregate demand as the sum of all market demands for all goods and services, meaning the sum of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. When the federal minimum wage is increased, it increases the purchasing power of a greater portion of the population, leading them to demand more. The more they demand, the more producers supply, and more revenue is pushed into the economy, which is good for the country's GDP. Thirdly, a reduction in government spending on welfare benefits. As it is, the government spends a lot of money on welfare benefits such as Medicaid, TAMF, SNAP, and others to assist families living below the poverty line. If the government increases the federal minimum wage to $15 per hour, thus bringing many families out of the poverty line, it can then be able to defund such programs as less people would need them. The funds can go into other government projects or servicing the national debt. Ultimately, the government will accrue lots of money from the workforce, and as a result, there will be an increase in government revenue. Now, let's talk about policy recommendations. In order to get Congress to pass legislation implementing a federal minimum wage of $15 per hour, the majority of the public must support it. How can the government use the media to sway public opinion? Twitter. Twitter has become a very influential social media platform for different groups of people, politicians included. The president could tweet about the benefit of a federal minimum wage of $15 per hour, which will immediately start a public conversation about it. News outlets will carry it, and then people will become interested. Once people get interested, it makes it easier for a favorable opinion to be formed and then a support of a $15 per hour minimum wage. After getting the public on the side of the $15 per hour minimum wage, the next step is for Congress to pass legislation on it. I suggest the federal minimum wage should be increased in three phases from $7.25 an hour to $10 and then to $12 and finally to $15 in the span of 5 years. This will prevent drastic economic changes in the economy which could produce problems in the future. However, there are some potential issues with increasing the federal minimum wage, and we will address them. The major argument of those who are against increasing the federal minimum wage is that in the short run, employers might lay off workers due to inability to increase workers' wages. In a survey of about 1,213 businesses and human resource professionals, 38% of employers who currently pay minimum wage said they will lay off some employees if the minimum wage was raised to $10.10. 54% said they would decrease hiring levels. However, there is a solution to this problem. To soften this problem that can come up in the short run, the government should take on job creation through spending on projects. Amadeo identifies that a University of Massachusetts study found that $1 billion spent on public works created 19,975 jobs. Such public works including building roads and other construction work that require labor is Keynesian economics, which led to the end of the Great Recession in 2009 and the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. In conclusion, I believe that the cost of living as well as the cost of education is rising, and it is important for the government to ensure that the citizens can live comfortably. After all, those earning the minimum wage work in industries that build the US economy. It is highly unfair for them to contribute so much to this nation and still not be able to reap the fruit of their labor. The argument that those working minimum wage are unskilled is outdated. Not having a university degree does not make one unskilled at tasks. Without these jobs, there will be a collapse in the economy. So, in essence, individuals working minimum wage jobs do provide a lot for the economy and they do deserve better. It is time for the government to protect all their citizens economically and not just those in the top 1%. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.